Inaz and the Two Unmarriageable Lovers. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 4 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real love story of 2 unmarriageable lovers. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 42. The Challenge of the Muslim Wife. The polygamist husband Tariq Harun Al-Ajabo arrived in Bombay with great expectations in his heart. While he was on his way from Egypt to India, he built many golden castles in his mind. He expected that his beloved Arab girlfriend Inaz Ahmed Silla to receive him as her dear old African lover and rejoice over him as her lawful Muslim husband. At last, he concluded, the days of their painful separation have come to an end and the wonderful years of their enjoyment have begun. His life dream had been fulfilled on the day his beautiful Arab girlfriend's proud and arrogant father had come with his tail between his legs and begged him to marry his beloved Arab daughter Inaz. Tariq Harun Al-Ajabo expected that his beloved girlfriend would travel with him once again to the sandy golden beaches of Goa City, and the newly wedded couple can relive those wonderful days of their honeymoon all over again. This time, he anticipated that Inaz will treat him as her matchable lover. She can no longer deny him full access to her pussy, and she cannot tell him time and again that they are unmarriageable lovers and that her virginity belongs to her Arab fiancé Osama Hashim Silla. As he married her as a lawfully Muslim wife, she has to treat him as her lawful husband and allow him to consummate their marriage. If she refuses him, as her lawful Muslim husband, he can go to the Sharia court and demand the issuing of the obedience verdict against her. Tariq remembered how much Inaz tortured him when she refused to allow him to claim her virginity. He believes no lover except him had ever been denied what every beloved girlfriend should gladly and joyfully give to her dear lover. After their honeymoon, the African boyfriend Tariq decided to convince his beautiful Arab girlfriend Inaz to discontinue her study in India and travel with him to Egypt and resume her medical education at the prestigious University of Cairo, where he is studying engineering. Over there they can live happily ever after and have many children. He is not planning to reveal to her his first marriage to the ugliest Arab girl he ever met and married. He decided never to tell her that until she becomes pregnant with his baby first. He thought she may reject him and demand a divorce if she comes to know that he is already a married man and has an Arab wife in Egypt. Before he left Cairo, his Egyptian wife has already become pregnant. Then Tariq sent her to live with her poor family in their hut inside the graveyards and promised to return soon and take her out of her tomb and bring her again to his beautiful apartment in the most opulent area in Cairo City. He is afraid that in his short absence abroad his ugly Arab wife may bring an Egyptian boy and sleep with him. Tariq knew from the beginning his matrimony with that ugly Arab girl is a marriage of convenience. Therefore, neither the Egyptian wife nor her Sudanese husband has any love or emotional attachment for one another. Nevertheless, Tariq's cousin brother Khalid Maman Al-Ajabo took the wind out of his sails when he told him why his Arab girlfriend Inaz had forsaken the beautiful religion of her Muslim parents and converted to the distorted religion of her Christian lover. He told him because of her mad and lustful love for the handsome Ethiopian lover, she forsook Islam and became an apostate and infidel Christian girl. He then described to him the unmatchable beauty of Joseph, who is called by all Sudanese students the white beautiful Indian peacock, and Sayyidina Yusuf al-Jamil. At this junction, Tariq remembered how the parents of his Arab girlfriend used to insult him and call him the ugly black Sudanese crow. Her arrogant mother said she would rather agree her beautiful Arab daughter marry a dog or pig, but not an ugly Karabi and Jangoui boy like Tariq Harun Al-Ajabo. On that fateful day, When Inaz was badly battered almost to death by her angry Arab parents, her African boyfriend Tariq concluded that he lost her forever. He also concluded that his beautiful Arab girlfriend was slain in a brutal honor killing because of her love for him. Before attempting to kill her, how her proud parents had insulted him and humiliated his fur father. Moreover, her arrogant mother called him Black Karabi and also told him on his face that her beautiful Arab daughter Inaz, even if she has to remain an unmarried widow all the rest of her life, she will never be allowed by her parents to marry a black African boy like him. Even his extremely wealthy African father was ridiculed and humiliated by her proud Arab parents. Nevertheless, Tariq forgot all those negative attitudes and racist insults when her father Mr. Ahmed Saleh came in person and offered him on a silver platter the hand of his beautiful Arab daughter in marriage. He knew and understood that the proud man would not have come to him and given him his Arab daughter as a wife if Inaz had not converted to Christianity. Inaz has put her father in the same helpless situation when she ran away from her handsome and highly educated Arab husband in Riyadh City and fell into the hands of the cruel Saudi policemen. At that time, her proud father came and kissed his head, hands, and legs, and then begged him to go and prove in the Riyadh Sharia court that he had divorced his wife Inaz before she married her cousin Osama. In order to save his beloved daughter from being stoned to death, the proud Arab father obtained through bribery a divorce certificate from a recognized Egyptian Muslim imam. It was bearing the name of the former African husband Tariq Haroun Al-Ajabo and his divorced Arab wife Inaz Ahmed Saleh. He then gave it to him and accompanied him to the Cairo International Airport and kissed him goodbye. Then Tariq flew to the Holy Land of his Prophet Muhammad and used that forged divorce certificate to rescue his beloved Arab girlfriend from her imminent death through stoning. But now, Tariq is wondering what he should do to convince his second Muslim wife to renounce her apostasy and re-embrace Islam. He is in great doubt about her conversion to Christianity. An Arab Sudanese girl as Inaz who was born and brought up as a Muslim girl and her mother tongue is the Arabic language of the Holy Quran could never leave Islam and become a Christian unless there are some strong motives behind her sudden change. Tariq guessed two possibilities. She was either had been deceived by a promise of a visa to a Western country or had been offered a lot of money by some European Christian missionaries. As now she has become the wife of the son of a wealthy business tycoon, Tariq expected his second Arab wife to renounce her abominable apostasy and live with him in a mansion as a rich king and his beautiful queen. If his Sudanese wife wants to immigrate to the West, the Muslim polygamist knows he can use his father's wealth and influence and obtain businessman's visas to any Western country of her choice. Accordingly, whatever might be the reasons behind her abominable apostasy, Tariq refused to believe that her conversion from Islam to Christianity is genuine. Therefore, he is absolutely certain that he will be able to convince her to rebuke Satan and return to her beautiful religion of Islam. After all, concluded Tariq, Islam is the only authentic, true, genuine, and bona fide religion in the entire universe, and all other religions are false and their source is Satan. And that included the two corrupted and distorted religions of the brothers of apes and pigs, namely the deluded Christians and the cursed Jews. On this basis, the former African boyfriend of Inaz found it difficult to believe due to his beautiful Arab girlfriend's love for a beautiful Christian boy. She left Islam and became an infidel apostate. At any rate, Tariq's cousin as we know him now is called Khalid Mamun Al-Ajabo. Many times, I purposely referred to him as the sex partner of the adulterous Sudanese Christian girl Mary Akal. This is because he is such a despicable person who fornicates with Mary and on her back calls her the black ugly bitch who looks like a scary female zombie who came out of her grave. He also told his friends he enjoys having sex with the Indian hookers more than with his ugly Sudanese sex female slave. He claimed that only when he has no money to go to spend a wonderful time with an Indian prostitute at Ferris Road, he calls Mary to come to his apartment and fuck her up. As a Christian infidel girl, he considered her as his right-hand possession and a free-of-charge sex female slave. He sarcastically said he cannot be able to fuck her up until he first becomes drunk with alcohol or gets drugged with marijuana. He also said he would close his eyes and imagine himself making love with a beautiful Indian girl while fucking the ugly bitch, Mary Akal. Sometimes, as he claims, he used a handkerchief or a bedsheet and covered her monstrous face, and then fucked her black and big cunt. Many times, he liquored her with a cheap Indian bootlicker called Daro and allowed some of his evil friends to have sex with her too. During that gang rape, Mary would be dead drunk. Sometimes, the drunk Christian girl got raped by 3 to 5 of Khalid's Sudanese Muslim friends in his apartment and on his bed. He charges them money for raping his female sex partner, but Mary could not get or see a single rupee of that money. Therefore, he is worse than the gay and pimp Arab husband of Anas. This racist Khalid in Sudan is called Karabi, Jangawi, and Ugly Black Crow. That is the malicious person from whom Tariq had heard the disturbing news of his beloved Arab girlfriend's motive behind her abominable conversion from Islam to Christianity. Khalid Mamoun Alajabo is like all other Sudanese students who believe that, because of her infatuation with the extremely handsome Ethiopian boy, Inaz had sold her religion and became an infidel apostate girl. Now Tariq is also made to believe that, due to a mere sexual lust for a beautiful boy, his former Arab girlfriend had sold his love too. He, therefore, started to despise her and regretted that he came all the way from Cairo to Bombay for such a cheap girl. She is no more his beloved girlfriend and lawful wife Inaz, but she became the whore of Babel. He even refused to go and meet her in the church. He said to his cousin Khalid in front of Mary when the two sex partners told him where he can meet Inaz, that he will never step a foot in such an unholy place. For him, going to the Christian church is worse than going to a nightclub, a gambling casino, or visiting a barn for rearing pigs and dogs. He also believes that the church is worse than a brothel of gays and prostitutes, the temple of demons devoted to an idolatrous cult, and the cavern of devils, a place worse than a drinking bar, a den of infidels, a house of ill fame, a dwelling of iniquity, the refuge of devils, a gulf and abyss of perdition. Consequently, this time, the former African boyfriend Tariq refused to be a rescuer of his Arab ex-girlfriend Inaz. On the contrary, he began to join hands with those who are plotting to spoil her reputation and destroy her life. That Sunday afternoon, Inaz came along with her extremely beautiful Christian husband Joseph and confronted her former Muslim lover Tariq. She rebuked him for daring to plot with her evil father and contracted her in marriage without her knowledge, consent, and presence. Tariq told her that her Christian marriage with the uncircumcised infidel Ethiopian pig is invalid and her Islamic marriage with him is lawful. Inaz said to him, the paper that he and her father had created in a mosque in Egypt does not mean anything to her. She also said, she is not a girl for sale to be sold by her murderous father and purchased by the money of his wealthy father. She then added, no power or authority in the whole world can separate her from her Ethiopian lover and lawful Christian husband Joseph Abraha. After speaking those daring and challenging words to Tariq, the Arab apostate girl Inaz took hold of her extremely handsome husband's hand, and then she turned her back towards her African ex-boyfriend and marched out of the brothel and tavern of the despicable Khalid and his adulterous female sex partner Mary Akal. Chapter 43. The Nasty Church Gossip. The apostate Sudanese girl Inaz, her Ethiopian husband Joseph, and the Alexander family thought the problem of Tariq's unlawful Islamic marriage had ended there. Mr. Vijay and his wife Mrs. Mary Alexander went with Inaz and Joseph to Khalid's apartment and witnessed the confrontation between the angry Sudanese wife and her selfish ex-boyfriend Tariq, and hence narrated to their Christian brothers and sisters in the church what had happened. They told them that the Muslim father of Inaz gave in marriage his already married daughter to her former Sudanese lover without her knowledge, consent, and presence. His aim, as Inaz correctly guessed, is to force her to forsake Christianity and leave her Christian husband and return to Islam and live with her Muslim husband Tariq. Nonetheless, the bold stand of Inaz had frustrated that possibility. Mr. Vijay Alexander suggested to Inaz to punish her former Muslim boyfriend Tariq for his wicked conspiracy against her. He said he can convince his police friend, the head of the Criminal Investigation Department, to arrest Tariq, deport him to Sudan, and blacklist his name. Nevertheless, Inaz requested him not to do so. She said she does not want to punish the Sudanese boy whom she used to love with every tissue of her body. She believes that the true culprit is her Muslim father. Most probably, her proud father, when he could not get a visa to India, traveled to Egypt, and enlisted the help of the boy he knows his daughter is in love with him. Before her apostasy, her father used to hate Tariq so much and used to call him many derogatory and racist words. He treated him and his family like dirt. Her parents called him the ugly black crow and said they would never allow their Arab daughter to marry an African boy like Tariq. No matter what, she believes he should not have conspired with her arrogant father and agreed to marry her like someone who bought a beautiful slave girl or a cheap jariya from the slave market at the time of the alleged prophet of God Muhammad. The Arab girl thought her former African boyfriend will spend a few days with his cousin Khalid and then forget about her and return for his engineering study at the University of Cairo in Egypt. In the meantime, Mr. Vijay Alexander took the copy of that pseudo-marriage contract and found an Arabic translator and translated it into English. He then gave the translated certificate to the pastor of their church and requested him to display it on the bulletin board of the church. The date in the false marriage contract showed that Tariq married Inaz just a few days before he met her and claimed to be her lawful Muslim husband. Her marriage with her Christian husband Joseph happened before that pseudo-marriage was conducted in Egypt between Tariq and the father of Inaz. For that reason, the court marriage certificate and the Christian marriage contract of Inaz Ahmed Sulla with Joseph Abraha have been displayed on the bulletin board of the church too. The wise man Mr. Vijay Alexander did that because he heard a nasty rumor that began to spread among the Christian believers, which said the Muslim apostate girl Inaz has a Muslim husband, and without divorcing him she had married her beautiful Ethiopian boyfriend. The rumor said further that Inaz had enticed the handsome Joseph Abraha and cajoled him in a sham marriage. But now, her Muslim husband came from Sudan and confronted her in public in the church compound and exposed her deception before many Christian brothers and sisters. Therefore, many Christians began to look at Inaz as the beautiful wife of Potiphar who tempted Joseph to commit adultery with her. That adulterous woman was the wife of an Egyptian minister of Pharaoh, and she tried to tempt her beautiful Jewish slave boy Joseph, but she failed to achieve her goal. Therefore, the adulterous Sudanese Inaz had succeeded in deceiving the beautiful Ethiopian Christian boy Joseph and made him commit adultery with her 100 times. However, the holy and just Lord had exposed her sinful and adulterous life openly when her Muslim husband came to the church and revealed his valid Islamic marriage with her. The rumor said Inaz has 2 children, a boy and a girl, with her Muslim husband. Of course, the adulterous Sudanese Mary Akal is the driving force behind that malicious gossip. Although she claimed to be a holy Christian sister who regularly attends Sunday service in the church, in reality, she is a wolf in sheep clothing. Therefore, the good man, Mr. Vijay Alexander, decided to nip that nasty rumor in the bud. For that reason, he translated the false Islamic marriage contract certificate of Inaz and Tariq and displayed it on the bulletin board of the church. Nevertheless, a couple of weeks later, Mr. Vijay Alexander received an urgent phone call from the pastor of their church. The leader of the church said the Muslim husband of the apostate girl along with the Christian sister Mary Akal and her Sudanese boyfriend Khalid had come to his residence. Mary Akal deceived many Christians that her Sudanese boyfriend Khalid is her fiancé, and he is planning to forsake Islam and become a Christian and marry her. As we know, Khalid said to his friends, he will never marry an ugly black Christian slave girl like Mary who looks like a zombie woman who came out of her grave. He also said he would rather marry the wife of Satan than marrying an uncircumcised infidel Christian girl. Then, the pastor said to Mr. Vijay Alexander that those 3 Sudanese showed him a marriage certificate in English, which indicated that Inaz Ahmed Sulla had married her Muslim husband Tariq Haroon before she had married her Christian husband, Joseph Abraha. The certificate is an official Indian document and had been issued by a recognized religious Muslim leader in a mosque in Pune city. Then the pastor faxed the certificate to Mr. Vijay Alexander. Upon receiving the fax and looking at the document, Mr. Alexander became speechless. After that, the pastor phoned Inaz and Joseph and asked them to come and meet him at Mr. Alexander's office. He said he is going to come shortly and bring with him his wife, 2 church leaders, and those 3 Sudanese students. He further said, if Inaz will not provide a piece of legal evidence to prove that she divorced her Muslim husband prior to her marriage with her Christian husband, the church can no longer recognize her Christian marriage. And if Joseph and Inaz have decided to continue their unlawful marriage relation, the church leadership will consider their union adultery and most probably stop them from coming to the church. Unfortunately, that office meeting has done so much damage to the reputation of the terribly abused and persecuted Sudanese girl Inaz by her Sudanese people. Now the devil stepped in again and used the boy she used to love before and created a serious division between her and her new Christian brothers and sisters. Chapter 44. They have been thrown out of the church. When that important church meeting happened, the married couple, Inaz and Joseph, are sitting on one side of a big round table inside the office of Mr. Vijay Alexander. Tariq, Khalid, and Mary occupied an opposite side of the same large table. Pastor James, his wife Sandra, and 2 assistant pastors, Daniel and Mark, have seated together on yet another side of the big table. Mr. Vijay Alexander and his wife Mary Alexander are sitting on the opposite side of the table. Pastor James began the meeting by offering a short prayer. All have closed their eyes and bowed their heads except the 2 Muslim cousins Tariq and Khalid. Inaz and Joseph had not been informed about the purpose of the meeting. Therefore, they have been shocked when the pastor brought with him those 2 Muslims and the Sudanese Mary Akal. Inaz thought she might never see Tariq again after she confronted him at his cousin's apartment. Although Joseph had not been told by anyone why they had been called for the meeting, still he sensed a snake in the bush when he saw the African ex-boyfriend of his wife Inaz and his evil Muslim cousin Khalid and his Christian girlfriend Mary. Well, Pastor James began the meeting. I have called you all for this private meeting because it has been brought to my attention that Inaz Ahmed Silla was still bound by another lawful Islamic marriage when she married her Ethiopian Christian fiancé, Joseph Abraha. Why again the same topic? Joseph responded impatiently. Inaz had been given in marriage to this Tariq without her knowledge, presence, and consent. Do you call such a conspiracy a lawful marriage, Pastor James? I won't call it lawful marriage if Inaz can supply evidence that her Islamic marriage was nullified prior to her Christian marriage with you. Mr. Vijay Alexander had obtained an official translation of that illegal marriage contract which this Tariq had brought with him from Egypt and handed it over to you. That certificate was created on a later date than our marriage's date. So, what more proof do you require, Pastor James? Can I say a word? Mr. Vijay Alexander requested to be allowed to speak. Please say on, Pastor James responded quickly. Sister Inaz, your ex-boyfriend Tariq has brought new evidence that you married him in Pune City and your marriage was conducted by a recognized Indian Muslim religious leader. Here is a copy of that marriage contract. Neither Inaz nor Joseph has bothered to look at the proof that Mr. Vijay Alexander has tried to make them have look at it. That wasn't a marriage at all, Inaz shouted angrily. It was a false and sham marriage. Tariq and I were forced by a wicked leader of the Muslim Brotherhood to conduct that pseudo-marriage. Why didn't you and Tariq go to the Pune police and lodge a complaint against the terrorist leader, and then you should get that marriage nullified? Pastor James asked. When Inaz remained quiet, the pastor resumed his words. Instead of doing that, you both had traveled together to Goa City and celebrated your honeymoon as a bride and her groom. We didn't feel the need to lodge a complaint because we both knew in real life we weren't married to each other. Inaz tried to justify herself. But you lived as a husband and his wife. You traveled to Goa together, stayed in the same hotel room, and slept in the same bed. Was it not what every married couple would do when they got married? Yes, whatever you have said we did, except having sex, said Inaz angrily. Come on, Inaz, give me a break, the other church leader Daniel said while laughing. How do you expect us to believe 2 young lovers like you and Tariq had stayed for many days in the same room and slept on the same bed and had not had sex even once? Do you want to convince us that all that time you lived together as a brother and a sister? Here's Tariq. You can ask him whether he and I ever had sex even once. Tariq, Mr. Vijay Alexander said, is what Anaz has said true or not? Not true, Tariq responded in a faint voice, but everybody heard him. You're such a cheap man, Inaz shouted at her African ex-boyfriend. You first conspired with my evil father and conducted that unlawful marriage in Cairo. When I confronted you and exposed your wicked deed in your cousin's apartment, then you had gone to Pune and brought with you another certificate of another pseudo-marriage. If, as you have said, Tariq was your Sudanese ex-lover before you met your Ethiopian boyfriend Joseph and fell in love with him, then why didn't you marry him? Pastor James asked. I would if I could, but because we were unmarriageable lovers. What do you mean by we were unmarriageable lovers? Tariq is an African Sudanese boy and I am an Arab Sudanese girl. Therefore, my Arab family did not allow me to marry a boy from Tariq's tribe. But your Arab father had recently conducted your marriage with Tariq. He did that because he wanted to get me to renounce my Christian faith and return to Islam. And also, he wanted me to leave my Christian husband Joseph and accept Tariq as my Muslim husband. But Joseph is also an African boy from Ethiopia, then how come you agreed to marry him? I haven't said I did not want to marry my African lover. I have said my Arab parents did not allow me to marry an African boy like Tariq. What is wrong with the African boy? It is a cultural problem. You Indian guys cannot understand it even if I have to explain it to you 100 times. Simply put, Arabs in Sudan will not agree to marry their daughters to African boys. If you knew in advance that your parents wouldn't allow you to marry Tariq, then why did you fall in love with him? This question has been asked by Khalid Mamun Alajabo. Inaz understood that the cunning Muslim cousin of Tariq wants to trap her by quoting her admission. Before I fell in love with Tariq, I had already been engaged to my first cousin Osama Hashim Silla. Tariq knew about my engagement, and therefore he agreed to keep our friendship platonic in nature. You lived with Tariq in the same apartment in Pune. You had slept with him on the same bed and bathed together while you were fully naked. You had even kissed, hugged, and fondled each other's naked private parts, and you want us to believe it was innocent and platonic love in nature. I said we had not had sex together even once. I told Tariq that my virginity belonged to my fiancé, and he had respected my commitment to my future Arab husband Osama. You mean that gay and pimp husband of yours who sold you as a sex slave through gambling to 7 of his Saudi friends who raped you inside his house? Khalid has spoken those words in mockery and sarcastic. Inaz could not reply to him, but her tears began to fall out of her eyes. That is none of your business, Joseph responded in anger when he saw the tears of his beloved wife are falling on her cheeks. Have I talked to you or asked you to answer my question, O Sayyidna Yusuf al-Jamil, or our beautiful master Joseph? Khalid is still speaking in a mockery. Please stop these personal attacks, Mr. Alexander interrupted the unpleasant confrontation between Joseph with Khalid. Whatever you may say, Anaz, Pastor James has spoken loudly. According to the Indian law, you are still a married woman when you married Joseph Abraham. Even after your marriage, you are still the lawful wife of Tariq. You could have gone to jail if anyone had reported you to the Indian police at that time. The assistant leader, Pastor Daniel, has said those words softly, but everyone heard him. Even today, if anyone lodges a complaint against you and your husband Joseph, you both may go to jail. The other assistant leader, Pastor Mark, has said those words loudly. Before the 3 Indian church leaders have revealed such legal culpability against Inaz, neither Tariq nor his cousin Khalid knew about it. Therefore, they understood that the church leaders have given them the weapons to kill the Muslim apostate girl who became their bitter enemy. Well, Inaz and Joseph, our church will not accept your union as a lawful Christian marriage from today onwards. You are welcome to come to church, but not as husband and wife. Just like Christian brother and sister in the faith, thus, Pastor James has concluded the meeting authoritatively. With all due respect to you, Pastor James, said Joseph angrily, Inaz is the most abused and persecuted girl I have ever known in my life. If I have to listen to you and leave her, she may either kill herself or get killed by those Sudanese Muslim terrorists who masqueraded themselves as foreign students. "Brother Joseph, you have misunderstood Pastor James," Mr. Alexander responded at once. "He has not said we Christians have to fold our hands and leave those Sudanese foreign students to kill Inaz as an apostate girl. Despite that, as a recognized religious leader, he cannot break the Indian law by recognizing your Christian marriage with a girl like Inaz, who still has a lawful Muslim husband. Your marriage is unlawful in the eyes of Indian law. Inaz can continue staying in my house. And as I am doing, I will continue to ensure her safety. But she can't have any physical contact with you as she used to do before. I will never leave my husband Joseph, even if the entire world stands against us." Inaz has loudly shouted those words because she wants to prove her strong and genuine love with Joseph and also to challenge anyone present there, especially her African ex-boyfriend Tariq, because he conspired against her with her wicked father and those Sudanese student terrorists. "Neither I am going to leave my Christian wife Inaz Ahmed Silla. She is my lawful wife, and therefore only death can set us apart." By this assertion, Joseph has confirmed the words of his beloved wife and challenged the religious authority of his church leaders and the Indian law of marriage. "Okay, Joseph and Inaz, since both of you have decided to defy the decision of the church pastor, you are no more welcome to enter the holy sanctuary of the Bandra Church." Those words have been spoken by the wife of Pastor James. Mrs. Sandra has spoken for the first time since the meeting began. She and Mrs. Mary Alexander remained silent all this time and let the men handle the serious marital issue of the Sudanese apostate girl who supposedly married two husbands at the same time. One is a Muslim man and the other a Christian man. This is an extremely complicated problem that they have never come across it either in the stories of the Holy Bible or among other Christians in their church. Therefore, they neither know how to handle it nor to pass a correct judgment on it from the Holy Scriptures. And if Joseph and Inaz come again to our church, we may hand them over to the Indian Police Authority. Thus has spoken Pastor James, confirming the words of his wife, who herself is a female pastor. Those condemning and threatening words have made Tariq, Khalid, and Mary extremely happy. They have expected Inaz to cover her face, cry, and Joseph to bow his head in shame. Instead, the so-called cheating Sudanese wife has lifted her head in pride and challenged the authority of her church leaders. Likewise, they have made her Christian husband Joseph back up her decision and promise to stand by her side and defend her by offering his life. "From today onwards, I am going to leave the residence of Alexander's family and moving to my Christian husband Joseph's apartment. I am ready to die in his arms. No power or authority in heaven or earth can separate me from him. Only death can set us apart or separate us from each other." Through those bold words, Inaz has spoken volumes about her deep and unwavering love for Joseph. "Me too, I am not going to leave my lawful Christian wife Inaz. No one can touch her as long as I am alive. Only over my dead body can those Muslim terrorist students reach her." Likewise, the brave Ethiopian husband Joseph has revealed his strong love for his Christian wife and also shown to everybody sitting there how much his commitment to protect his beloved Muslim apostate girl Inaz, who became everything in his life.